Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Jasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamana Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dhari Jasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Hari Virgacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya We're in Vrindavan through sound. in the association of the Gopis, who are praising Krishna, particularly his flute playing and how his flute playing affects everybody. So we're reading this morning, starting with Brihat Bhagavatamrita, where Sanatana Goswami is touching on this topic. Hearing that sound of the flute, all the demigods and perfected mystics, flying in their airplanes, were bewildered in divine love, and so were their wives. Indra, Shiva, Brahma, and other demigods were so confused that they could no longer tell fact from fiction. So what to speak of the Gopis, right? Commentary. Flying over the earthly Vrindavan, the demigods and sages in their vimanas, the subtle vehicles that carry them all over the universe by the power of air, were helplessly attracted by Krishna's flute, and their wives succumbed to the charms of Cupid. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:21-12, the Gopis describe that scene. Quote, Krishna's beauty and character create a festival for all women. Indeed, when the demigods' wives, flying in airplanes with their husbands, catch sight of him and hear his resonant flute song, their hearts are shaken by Cupid, and they become so bewildered that the flowers fall out of their hair and their belts loosen. Paragraph. When the demigods and sages in their vimanas approached Vrindavan, they first heard the faint sound of Krishna's flute from a distance. Then, as they came closer and the sound became more audible, even Brahma and Shiva and Indra were bewildered. Quoting our verse 14-15 this morning. O pious Mother Yashoda, your son, who is expert in all the arts of herding cows, has invented many new styles of flute playing. When he takes his flute to his bimba-red lips and sends forth harmonious notes in variegated melodies, Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and other chief demigods become confused upon hearing the sound. Although they are the most learned authorities, they cannot ascertain the essence of that music, and thus they bow down with their heads and hearts. So that's verses 14-15 from this chapter. The principal demigods and sages were so confused that they couldn't even remember their own identities. They thought, quote, now we can no longer be certain whether the Brahman we know from the Upanishads is actually the absolute truth. Perhaps the sound of this flute is the absolute truth instead, because it seems to be the supreme embodiment of pure ecstasy. And now comes a little commentary from Ujjwala Nilamani. Very esoteric, elevated book. Here's the text and then the commentary by Vishwanath. The Gopis did not marry the cowherd men, who held no animosity because the cowherd men saw forms of the Gopis made by Maya. This is like a refrain that our acharyas speak about. Here's Vishwanath. Question. What is the solution to the statement that the Gopis were married? Answer. The cowherd men did not show hatred because they thought that the Gopis were at home, while they actually went to meet Krishna, since Maya had constructed other forms of the gopis to stay at home. This Maya is Yoga Maya, not external Maya, since material Maya has no jurisdiction over the perfect associates in the Lord's abode, and since it is impossible that they could be materially bewildered and thus be opposed to the Lord, that's the husbands, and because one never sees the cowherd men hate the Lord, that is because Yoga Maya is the Chit Shakti of the Lord, and therefore her effects must be eternally true. Even when the material world is completely destroyed, the cowherd men continue to identify the gopis as their wives at their side. This is an eternal situation. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, again another commentary. Here the emphasis, this is a separate section, the emphasis is upon the self-taught, this is my comment, by the way. Radha and Krishna performed activities, and commonly in Vedic culture you have a teacher, but neither of them had teachers. They just exhibited, like Krishna flute playing, he just invented ways of playing the flute that nobody knew before. And Radha similarly has arts that are self-taught. So it's about Radha, from Ujjvala Nilamani, her cleverness in arts. Radha, master of all arts of love, is an authority in painting with minerals, is skillful at cooking a variety of pleasing dishes on her own, makes Krishna foolish in word battles, and is master of stringing garlands. She is skillful at understanding the shadi and parrot, defeats Krishna at dice, and has sharp intelligence in music. That's Ujjvala Nilamani, then Vishwanath's commentary. Kundalata speaks to a gopi who asks, how skillful Radha has become, though she was born just yesterday. And the answer, she is an acharya of painting with no teacher. Not learning from anyone, she produces a variety of cooked foods by her own creativity. Similarly, it is said, quote, Krishna has invented many new styles of flute playing. Paragraph. She defeats Krishna, guru of words, or Saraswati in a battle of words. She has particularly sharp intelligence of singing and musical instruments, and logic, mimamsa, and other philosophies. So that's the end of our discussions on 14, 15, and now we're going to begin 16 and 17. Canto 10, Chapter 35, 16, 17. As Krishna strolls through Vraja with his lotus petal-like feet, marking the ground with distinctive emblems of flag, thunderbolt, lotus, and elephant goad, he relieves the distress the ground feels from the cow's hooves. As he plays his renowned flute, his body moves with the grace of an elephant. Thus we, gopis, who become agitated by Cupid when Krishna playfully glances at us, standing as still as trees, unaware that our hair and garments are slackening. And here's the BBT purport. Here, Mother Yashoda is no longer in the company of the gopis, who are confidentially describing their conjugal attraction to Krishna. It is clear from the comments of Jiva Goswami and other acharyas that the statements in this chapter were made at various times and places. This is natural since the gopis were always absorbed in thoughts of Sri Krishna day and night. Vishwanath writes, one gopi of another group, then spoke to her personal bewilderment on hearing the flute to Mother Yashoda. When Krishna, with elephant gait, walks around to relieve the earth of the pain of the cow's hooves striking the ground, by the touch of his feet, which resemble lotus petals, which are marked with symbols like the flag and conch, we gopis, whose hearts are agitated with lust, through his glances become stunned like trees, and are not aware of our clothing or hair, which all become loose without our noticing it. Though Krishna has relieved the earth of pain, he has produced pain in us by his lotus-eyed glances. This is our misfortune. Jiva Goswami writes, another devoted group holding secret rasa, produced internally by pastimes, is addressed. After passing the third yama of the day in talking about Krishna, when he does not arrive, some of the gopis, with anxious hearts on the pretext of picking flowers, go to look for him. When it is time for the cows to return, they praise seeing him in the forest at the end of the day. Overcome by emotion, they say, oh, dear friends, enough of speaking of others becoming bewildered. Hear about our own condition. They speak this verse. Paragraph. By using the word nija, or his very own, the unusual nature of his feet is indicated. The plural is used instead of the dual out of great respect, or to express the uncommon beauty of each footprint. Those feet have beautiful, astonishing marks of the flag, thunderbolt, lotus, and gold. His feet are beautiful and astonishing with these marks. Paragraph. With those feet he relieved the land of Braja of the pain caused by the hooves of the cows, since he herds the cows there because of the grass. When the Lord follows the cows, his feet naturally touch the earth, and the earth then sprouts new grass and shoots immediately. Pasturing the unlimited cows is a daily occurrence. He moves slowly with the grace of an elephant, since he is playing his flute. If he moved quickly, he could not play the flute. Though he naturally moves in this manner, they mention this because of its special beauty at this time. It is especially attractive to us. He wanders here and there. Paragraph. The gopis' minds become agitated by his playful glance at them, which enter within them. They express their confused state. They become stunned, motionless like trees. When he moves about, we become motionless. By his cleverness, we become dumbfounded. The opposite result is shown. This shows his power to bewilder and the gopis' pitiful condition. They do not know that their dresses and hair have become slackened. The latter phrase have become slackened is not mentioned out of embarrassment. They just don't know. Our hair, what to speak of our clothing, becomes loose. Sanatana Goswami writes, because of the sudden statement directed to Yashoda, there is no regard for a sequence in time in reciting the verses. But his flute playing at noon can be inferred in the present verse. In great pain, the gopis display their bewilderment because of great pain at that moment. That is expressed in 2 verses. Paragraph. He is not wearing shoes, and there are many footprints. His feet are like lotus petals, wide at the front and narrow at the back, soft and pink. The plural indicates many footprints, or indicates respect. The footprints and feet have extraordinary markings. Shankha and chakra marks are not mentioned, since they are very famous on Vishnu's feet. Paragraph. By those marks he removes the pain of hooves treading on the land of Govardhan and Vrindavan. This is because his lotus feet, by their nature, remove all pain. The beautiful footprints cover the hoof marks, and remove all pain. Krishna moves slowly and gracefully, like the king of the elephants, since he is playing the flute. Though he does this to bewilder the gopis, he also does this to avoid boldness. Actually, there is no injuring of the earth by the cow's hooves, only an appearance of marks, since the cows are related to the Lord himself. However, the gopis do not mention this, since they lack reflective powers because of their unsatisfied desires. The injuries to the earth are from the hooves of Dhenuka and Arishtasura. Krishna goes from Braja to the forest. He moves here and there. Because of him, our minds become agitated by his beautiful or playful glance. We cannot prevent this. Though he may glance for some other purpose, they develop the greatest bewilderment because their desire is aroused. Thus, step by step, they reveal his beauty, pastimes, and sweetness. They become like trees, unable to move, because of agitation by his glance. After becoming stunned by his glance, we are not aware that our clothing has become loose. When he comes, we do not show skill and become foolish. Opposite result shows his great attractiveness and their humble position. We do not know that our hair has become undone, that our clothing has become loose. Though in bewilderment one loses awareness of everything related to the body, particularly the women would usually be aware of their cloth. In the previous pairs of verses, each verse is a separate statement, but in this verse, the statement continues into the second verse. Because he comes, they become stunned. This means that because of his direct association, they become stunned. Paragraph. Yashoda went away to do chores, or because of doubled suffering on hearing about the excellence of her son. When they became free of worry that she would return, out of great pain, they speak among themselves about their bewilderment in relation to their description of Brahma's bewilderment. Lest the word vichitra indicates other astonishing marks of beauty on his feet, like the barleycorn and chakra. First, they become stunned, and then, because of bewilderment, they were not aware of their clothing becoming loose. Yesterday we heard this really elevated description about rasa and the elements of rasa and so forth. And there was a question about what does sanchari mean. So in Prabhupada's word for word, commonly it's continuous ecstasy. And Sanchari sent me a text. I could read it. It's also like really elevated. Because one devotee in Houston, she asked, because I asked her to ask, and he gave this very elevated, from scripture, source of information on what that name means. And I'll read a little bit. The essence is, it's from these texts that are describing, like we heard yesterday, elements of poetry and drama. And there's two primary authors that are noted for those descriptions. One of them is Vishwanath Acharya, or Vishwanath something. Huh? Kaviraj, right, thank you. So there's texts that deal with dance, because that's also a creative expression. So the terminology, because dance in its classic sense, like music and like poetry and like drama, is meant to awaken emotion toward Krishna. And it's since been degraded because the science still works, but people use it to promote attraction for worldly something or other. So here, these references are, I'll read. Srila Prabhupada does not really go into these details of rasa because of our lack of qualification in understanding them. And he warns of it in the Nectar of Devotion. But here's some detail. It speaks of rasa is a nice metaphor. Rasa is like an ocean. I'll see if I can get that one. Rasa it has 5 primary rasas, and the language is Sthayi Bhava. Sthayi Bhava is an exchangeable term for the primary rasas. And Sthayi Bhava is the ocean. Sanchari Bhavas are the waves within the ocean. They appear and then they subside, which is a different explanation than continuous ecstasy. Although I guess you could say the waves keep moving, and that's what Sanchari Bhava is. Just as the waves from time to time quickly rise and expand the ocean in the same way Sanchari Bhavas expand rasa repeatedly to bring it to the highest stage. Sanchari Bhavas are emotions which specifically enlarge or heighten the relationship with Krishna, or relationship with, if there's the mundane kind of relationship. Rupa Goswami ingeniously compares rasa, or the spiritual relationship, to rasala, or a kind of sweet drink. The sthai bhava is compared to yogurt, the substance of the drink, and vibhava, anubhava, sattvika bhavas, and sanchari bhava are compared to sugar, pepper, and various condiments that give the drink its special flavor. These must be combined according to a particular recipe. You don't want mixture of unfavorable rasa-basa. One takes the guidance of a spiritual master of the scripture and the saintly persons, although by this stage one is functioning according to his natural impulse, his natural spiritual relationship with Krishna. Anyway, just because I'm mentioning that because it came up yesterday, and it's, it continues along the same line, because there are different elements, and the connoisseurs, like, just like gourmet cooks, they know how if you combine this and that, you get something. So the connoisseurs of rasa, our acharyas, they understand, as this verse has these elements, it has a certain taste, and then that verse, and that's rasa. It's waves. It's an ocean that has waves, and this wave rises and that wave rises, and there's a mixing. That's what we heard yesterday. From these, there's sthai bhava. Then when sthai bhava mixes with, that's the primary relationship with Krishna. When it mixes with vibhava or vibhava and other rasas, other bhavas, that's there's the ocean, and then waves rise and waves rise. So there's ways of describing those waves that rise, whether it's in musical notes, or whether it's a drama, and whether it's words spoken. And Rupa Goswami connects all of that with the alambana, the basis, the object, Krishna. And then there's Krishna and his devotees, and then there's stimulations of that rasa. Something stimulates this bhava, something else. So they enjoy, like gourmet cooks, how to make things that are really nice. Or really expert musicians, they know how different musical notes. So they, these are connoisseurs of rasa in the literary form, and therefore naturally they refer to, or the basis and support is the texts that take this wisdom from the Vedas. The science of this, Vedas have the science of everything, including the science of rasa, or the science of drama, or the science of music, or the science of poetry. And the purpose, again, of all the Vedas is to connect with Krishna. The purpose of all the Vedas is to know Krishna. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So it's correct to connect those things with Krishna. And you can say it's incomplete, or you can even say it's incorrect. Although there's potency in mundane poetry, but it's just a reflection. Or mundane music, it's just a reflection. It may be, inspired, but it's just a reflection. And then there's the real thing. So the gopis are experiencing the real thing. And they're expressing, and there's potency within their words and their expressions, and therefore the sweetness. Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's see if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna. I'm thinking, after hearing few classes, yesterday evening we heard that there was not much descriptions about the gopis or Vrindavan Vasis, what happens after Krishna leaves to Mathura, especially to Dwaraka.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of relationship they had, like very high, like gopis. And also remember hearing Radharani as kind of Satyabhama.
Yeah.
So is it like the gopis disappear and take as some of the queens of Dwaraka, or it's,
Disappear or expand themselves. The technology, my sense is they expand themselves, but the way that the literature describes, Radharani entered into the river Jamuna and just disappeared. So she's eternally in Vrindavan. She didn't leave Vrindavan, but she disappeared in the river Jamuna. The sun god, her Ishtadev, came and took her to his abode, and then later brought her to Dwarka. There's so expansions or disappear. So what's the right verb to use? The residents of Vrindavan never leave Vrindavan. So they don't go to Dwarka because they never leave Vrindavan. But their expansions, bhava expansions, or whatever the right way of describing it is, they want to be with Krishna. Just like Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, they never leave Vrindavan. Does that respond to your question? Okay.
one other question, if I can ask. The introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada talks about the faith and Sanatana Dharma, faith, different religions that we call Hindu, Muslim, Christian, and Sanatana Dharma. So, even to establish those faiths, the Lord has to appear, he has to, empower some devotee to do that generally. So, based on the time, place, and circumstance, is that the faiths will lose the relevance after that time, or is it like they are supposed to continue because they are?
Well, without disciplic succession, everything becomes dissipated. And where is their disciplic succession? Just keep it really simple. Where is their disciplic? So there was intentionally, by his arrangement, by arrangements of Muhammad and Christ, at least to my knowledge, for certainly with Christ, the arrangements were put in place, but knowledge became lost. Where's the disciplic succession? Etc. Expand it. Where's the... Does that answer your question?
So the process itself is not kind of wrong, even in today's circumstance, if there is a disciplic succession.
Well, but it's theoretical because there isn't. There isn't disciplic succession. Not only there's divisions of the theology of the original teachings, None of them are the original teachings, or there's modifications over or distortions over a period of time. Same, in our modern time, same thing happened with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's the deviated sampradayas, this, that, the other. And no surprise, but to maintain the integrity, that's required. Otherwise, you get something else. The principle that Prabhupada spoke over and over, is Dharma means religion means laws given by God, and the religious person follows the laws given by God. Laws. And therefore he would say, where's the real Christian that, follows the laws? We'd ask them, and they follow the law because they have their understanding what the law is. Just time dissipates, and what protects it is disciplic succession. Therefore, strong emphasis on not just faith in Krishna, but faith in the representatives of Krishna. And then the representatives of Krishna have a great obligation to be transparent representatives of the disciplic succession. Otherwise, knowledge is lost. And Dharma is lost. Everything's lost. Okay?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Volume.
Just two comments, no questions. One thing, as you were describing this drama stimulating, I just remember this Sakshi Gopal drama in the Puri Yatra by Chinese devotees. It was just so moving, and every time I remember, I still feel that. It's just so amazing. As you were describing the audience, how it can arise in the audience, how it can be arisen by the devotees or whoever is performing.
The dramatic actors, yeah.
So I was just appreciating that.
And then the words, all three. That there's the object, the subject, and the relationship.
As you're describing, Krishna is the alambana for that, and when it is directly glorifying in his pastimes, how it can move us. So that was really nice. The second thing, as I was hearing this description of rasa yesterday, it was all
high,
going very high. So as I was thinking, it was very difficult for me to understand with my limited understanding. But then this deep appreciation came. We just started reading the first canto of Bhagavatam. Even just to move to 10th canto, don't know how much time it takes, and I don't know. The other thing is we don't have the qualification or ability to understand. But here we are getting this greatest fortune because of your mercy and the acharyas. It was just so appreciative. And I was seeing how just by having these glimpses, it's increasing that eagerness to be more attentive, be more connected to Krishna through our regular sadhana process.
Let me just comment. Most mothers cook. And, different cooks cook in different styles. And some are, just get it done. And some are, make it nice. And some are really refined. So to hear from, like this appreciation of Jamuna, that those that had her association, it wasn't sense gratification. It was appreciation of Prabhupada's refinement and taking what she received from Prabhupada and making it. And it's to hear what we heard yesterday. It has many benefits. I mean, one of the benefits is Rupa Goswami didn't create something out of the air. It's rooted in scripture and the people illuminating scripture, and he was just in conformity with scripture. And we have trust in that, but then here's some detail in detail. It's rooted in the Vedas. It's not his creation. Then people took it from the Vedas and used it in other than Vedic purpose, but the principles are there. Scholarship took the principles, and he took the principles and connected it with the purpose to know Krishna. Then another is, appreciation of our acharyas. They're not only experiencing Krishna's pastimes, they're tasting the details and details and details and details. While Brahma and the demigods, they become bewildered by hearing Krishna's flute. They're being very clear about what the different features of Krishna's flute are doing to different personalities. And tasting, and then sharing that tasting, giving remnants of their tasting. So, and then another is you just keep going, because we may not understand that which is very elevated, but just keep going because it becomes elevated. You're starting first canto, how long will it take? But just keep following. That you know what the mature stage may look like, at least amongst our acharyas that we follow. We may not become an acharya, but we may become followers. And they're relishing like anything, and they lose interest in everything, just for that purpose. And then giving to others. Tapta jivanam, giving to others, mitigating the pain of worldly existence that's painful. So, your question. Those are two appreciations. You had a question. You're done. Okay. Pass it up. Thank you.
Maharaj, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hearing all these pastimes regularly, I feel it's the highest perfection being awarded to everyone. And the process that is given to us relatively seems very simple compared to other very difficult processes like other age.
Yes.
And but still there is this feeling, not feeling, the mind complicates even the simplest process that's being given. I was just thinking, if it is so natural to appreciate the relationship with Krishna and this whole subject matter, why is this complication happening in the mind, and how to cultivate simple-heartedness? Because one of the teachings that I've heard from you from Bhaktivinoda Thakur is Saralata is one of the main qualities to receive bhakti. So I guess my question is, why is even the simple process looking difficult or complicated to practice, and how to cultivate simple-heartedness?
When you kind of changed, it sounded like you kind of changed what happens when you hear to understand it becomes complicated. Your mind makes it complicated. So the process is quite simple, and then there's details and details. Just like, here's a carpet, and you get out a, high magnification something or other, and you'll see there's all kinds of things going there. But there's just a carpet. Or, the leaf of a tree looks really simple, but get, magnification, and it's really complicated. There's somebody they show a picture from a Google map. Here's a place, and then they go down, 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 and they go back up, 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 and it's, so it becomes complicated because of the tendency to try to understand things by the mind. It's just conditioned, and the mind is a complex machine or entity, and something simple becomes complex for those reasons. The simple is is from the heart. That is like the illiterate Brahmin. It is our classic example, one of them. He understood the essence of Bhagavad Gita because his heart, not because of his complex analytical abilities. So we're trained, and we kind of hone and pride ourselves in analytical abilities. Doesn't mean shut it off. If that's there, you use it. But it gets bewildering or confusing or hard to understand because we're relying too much on that and not on the simplicity part, from the heart part. So how to get beyond it? You use what you have and purify it, and conscious emphasis goes to the bhakti principle, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Knowing what it is, we cultivate it, and we a refinement and strengthening of our understanding what bhakti life really is, growing it and strengthening it and refining it. So that's what you do, and that moves one from the head to the heart. Start with our chanting. Not the active mind is not going to be very satisfied with chanting because it doesn't have stuff to analyze. It's just different. So, best means.
This question is from Ranjita Mataji from Florida. Prabhupada says in Nectar of Devotion that devotional service is greater than Krishna himself. So when a great devotee leaves this world, is the pain of separation from that devotee the same like the separation that we have from Krishna? And
there's more?
No. Is it the same bhava, she's asking?
Well, first of all, our consciousness is not pure, and so our sense of separation from a great personality is mixed because we're not pure. And what's our separation from Krishna is kind of like notional. And our separation from a great personality is not so notional, it's mixed. So our sense of separation from the bhava of separation from Krishna is accessible for those that have pure consciousness. Otherwise, we're just, there's not very much emotion going on in terms of Krishna and separation from Krishna.
Radhika Priya Mataji wanted to convey her special thanks to you for clarifying her question about Sanchari Bhava.
I sent her that document that I just read parts of. Go ahead. That's it.
So this is from Navya Chanda. She asks, Radharani's Ishtadev is sun god. Please explain it more.
It just keep it simple. When we chant Gayatri mantra, some people think it's worship of the sun or worship of the sun god, Surya. So Radharani is not going to be worshipping the sun or sun god in the material sense, but like when we chant Gayatri mantra, it's described in the Bhagavatam in relation to Bharat Maharaj. The worship of the sun is actually the worship of the Surya Narayan, or the presiding form of Narayan in the sun. So, in all of the abodes of great souls, like the demigods, there's a form of the Lord. Indra worships his younger brother, Vamana. Sun god worships Narayan, Surya Narayan. So she was worshipping Surya Narayan. Because, like Nanda and Jasoda, they worship Narayan. And she was worshipping Surya Narayan, the Narayan form on the sun planet. But she was known externally as a worshipper of the sun. So there's wonderful pastimes where Radha would go to Surya Kund and Krishna would go to meet Radha at Surya Kund. There's like wonderful pastimes, interesting pastimes. But she was in the pastime of Braja, she's known to be, her Ishtadev is the sun god. So there's some detail. It's not just exactly like people of this world may worship the sun for good health or something.
Sure.
Okay.
Rupavilas Prabhu asks, we understand the jivas in Goloka are already in their Sthayi Bhava.
In the which?
Sthayi Bhava.
Okay.
So the spiritual master's role there is then training students in making delicious recipes of rasala to please Krishna.
And that's an oversimplification of what the spiritual master's function is. And keep even more simplified is just enhancing the connection with Krishna. That's the spiritual master's function. Keeping it really simple.
Okay. Amara Mataji was asking, once you had mentioned pastime of Srila Prabhupada, how he taught that if one is focused in Krishna consciousness, he can do the same activities in lesser time. Does this apply to chanting? Asking with regard to time taken for one round of chanting.
Not necessarily.
Okay. And she has another one. Also, yesterday, as you had mentioned, there are about 15 or 16 references in Chaitanya Charitamrita about Bharata Muni. Is there compilation of those references available?
You have to do a word search, and you can find it.
Okay.
And it's not Bharata Muni, it's Vishwanath Kaviraj. The book title is mentioned. Go ahead.
And the next is Visalaksha Prabhu. How to make oneself the difference between the imitation and genuinely following the instructions of spiritual master while taking inspiration from the acharyas like Srila Prabhupada?
Well, it's head and heart. That's the differentiation.
Okay.
And if you're in the head, then you're not going to make the differentiation. Okay.
And then it's from Russell Prabhu, I think from Wisconsin.
Yes. No, Minneapolis.
Is the changing of Srila Prabhupada books an example of degradation in this age of Kali?
Is doing what?
Changing of Prabhupada books.
Oh, here's a political question. I'll leave that up to those who are sorting out that hot topic.
And this is the final one from Krishnachana Mataji, Subal Prabhu. The cows do not hurt the earth because they are with Krishna, or is it because lotus feet are soothing the earth?
There's further discussion on this topic, and one of the comments is the cows don't harm the earth because they're spiritual entities, but Denuka and Aristasura, they harm the earth. So, there's Rasika answers, but anyone that's been around, cows that move around in a pasturing ground, they make holes, depressions in the earth. It's just they're heavy creatures, and they press the earth, and the earth gets moved by their weight. But on the other hand, the earth of Vraja is also transcendental and feeling ecstasy by the touch of the hooves of the cows. So one can look at it in different ways, I think. Krishna loves the cows love Krishna, the earth loves Krishna, Krishna loves the earth, and it's a nice arrangement however it works out.
And one question from Sanchari Mataji. She asks, what or who did Krishna's flute manifest as in Chaitanya Leela?
You have to look that up. Gaura Godadesh Dipika. I don't have the answer. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.